my sweet friends, and welcome to Kinda Shabby. My name is Becky, and I am so glad you stopped by. In today's video, I have several short and sweet Valentine projects just to kind of get us back into that crafty mood after all the hustle and bustle of the Christmas holiday season. Well, there is lots of shabby cuteness in store, so let's get these projects started. For our first project, we're going to be taking some wooden ornaments here that I actually picked up from Hobby Lobby, and we're going to turn them into some really cute shabby Valentine decor. I'm going to be using Mod Podge and this gorgeous fabric for the first one. So I'm going to lay my ornament underneath there and just decide which part of that design on the fabric I want to show. That looks good, so I'm just going to draw a very wide circle around the outside of my ornament here and then cut that out. And now I can see exactly where I want that, trace around, and again cut it to where it's going to evenly fit around my little ornament here. And you can see it fits the ornament really well. And now we're going to apply our Mod Podge, and because my fabric is kind of a heavier weight cotton, I'm actually going to be using more Mod Podge than I would if I were doing paper. So I'm going to roll up half of the design, apply an even but a thicker coat, come back over the top, starting in the middle and rubbing that down. Pull this back and do the same thing, but just a little thicker than you would apply if you were using paper. Again, start in the middle and just smooth everything out. And I am going to come on the end and make sure I really get that fabric down on the edges. And apply a coat to the top. Well, now I'm going to use paper and apply that to our other ornament. You could use pretty napkins, and I picked these up at Tuesday morning. You can use decoupage paper, and I got this from Kimberly at My Victorian Heart. And then you can find designs that you like online. I found all of these designs on Pinterest, and you can print them on tissue paper, or you can also print them on plain napkin ply as well. And I'm going to use that on my next little ornament here. And again, I'm just going to trace out and cut my shape. And because this has a scalloped edge here, I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down to the back. I actually should have done the same thing to this one, and I just realized it when I went to put my paper down. And this time I'm using much less Mod Podge. And I start in the middle and pounce it to try and work out as many of those little air bubbles and wrinkles as I can. But it's shabby chic, so a couple of wrinkles really isn't going to bother me at all. So we're just going to let these little cuties dry, and then we're going to come back and get some embellishments on these. And now that our paper is dry, I'm just going to take a fingernail file and go around the outside edges to remove the excess paper. And as you take that around the edges, you'll see that that just easily comes right off with your fingernail file. I want to put ruffles around the outside edges, and you can use tulle or lace, you can use coffee filters, crepe paper, pom-poms, anything that you have on hand that's going to just decorate the outside edge and make that super frilly will be just fine. I love the look of this soft pink tulle with this design here, so I'm going to be making this ruffle from my tulle. I want my ruffle to be nice and full, so I'm actually going to go around my ornament 4 times just to make sure that I have enough of that fabric to make it nice and full and fluffy. And then I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to use some nylon thread and a large needle to sew a running stitch all the way down. And I'm actually going to be stitching on the folded edge because I actually like that shabby look of those raw edges. So I made a really good knot there to make sure that my thread isn't going to pull through these little holes here in my tulle. And then I'm just going to do a running stitch in and out with my needle, back and forth. And now that I've reached the other end, I'm just simply going to hold onto this and pull this to make a nice little gather here and make a beautiful little ruffle. So I've pulled it tight and clipped my thread so nothing is going to come apart. Now I'm going to just form a little circle out of this, and that's going to make such a cute little ruffle all the way around our little ornament here. I'll just start gluing it down into place. So as I glue it close to the stitching, then that leaves all of this nice and fluffy. And I like these little soft blush pink beads, and I'm just going to glue those around just to finish off that edge. And I'm going to tuck that under as I'm gluing, just so I don't get glue on my ruffle. I probably should have glued this down first and then glued down my ruffle, but I wasn't thinking. And a little bit of ribbon for a hanger. Now we've finished our first little shabby chic ornament. How cute is that? And I'm going to follow that same process with this one. I'm going to glue these white beads on here first, and then I'm going to do my running stitch and make a ruffle out of my lace and apply that on this one as well. Because my lace was already somewhat ruffled anyway, I just did 3 times the circumference of this one. And then I'm going to take these cut edges and roll it to the back and just tack that down with a little bit of glue on each end. Form a circle, place in my little ornament, and then I can glue that down as well. And that is just so beautiful. Oh, I love these. And a little white ribbon for this one. And then in no time, you have turned plain Christmas ornaments into beautiful, shabby chic Valentine decor. I love these. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next project. For our next project, I have opened up just a box from my pantry. I'm also going to be using the FolkArt in the color Patina, which is one of my absolute favorite colors. Also, Waverly in the color Ballet Slipper. I plan on cutting these into the sizes that I need after I paint them. And then I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we'll move on to the next step in our process. So while my paint dries, I'm going to get some molds prepared, and then we're also going to be doing some stamping as well. I'm going to be using the Iron Orchid Designs in Classic Elements, also the Iron Orchid Designs in Cameos. But instead of using clay, I'm going to be using hot glue. My small hot glue gun does not dispense the glue fast enough, so therefore I have to use my large glue gun in order to get the glue in the mold before it starts setting up. And I'm going to be using this one, and I also like these little roses in this one right here. I start in the middle and just start squeezing that glue out. It's clear, but as it dries, it starts to turn opaque. And now you can see once it dries, it actually turns a little opaque. And then all you do is just pop it and pull these out. And it still has all that wonderful detail that you would normally get from clay. So while I had my big glue gun out, I just went ahead and made a couple of other little fun things out of those molds as well. And all of this will show up when we get things painted. But I did want to show you how you can see all of this excess glue just comes right off with a little pair of scissors, and I just cut all of that excess glue off. And then I take my fingernail file again, and I can just smooth out all of those edges just like I would if this were clay. And then once you paint your pieces, you may see a couple of little areas that need to be snipped off as well. And you just come right in, do the same thing, take your scissors, cut off the excess, take your little fingernail file, and just make it all smooth. And I'm going to be painting all of my pieces in the Waverly in the color Plaster. And I have found that when you use a chalk type paint, that it does stick to the hot glue pieces much better than acrylics. And then once all of our paint dries, we're going to come back with some wax just to bring out all of those details. I do have a couple of little areas here that I do need to clip off as well. And you can see that once you get paint on there, they look so beautiful with all those little details. So we're just going to take a minute and we're just going to coat each of our pieces with some clear wax. And I'm just going to clip off these areas here. Aren't these just beautiful? And when you are using these molds on flat surfaces, I really like using the hot glue because your little items that you make in the molds are actually dry and ready for paint in like 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead off camera and coat all of my pieces with the clear wax, and then we'll come back and get some antique wax on top of that to bring out even more of the details. And now we're going to come back with just a tiny little bit of our antiquing wax. And this is just a personal preference. You definitely could paint these any color that you like. And then when you come back and blot off the excess, it just leaves the wax in those little details and it looks so, so pretty. And it really just looks so aged and vintage. I just love using the waxes. So again, I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do the same thing with each of my pieces here. I have this gorgeous rose gold metallic luster wax, and I'm going to just dip my finger in and see if it will stick and show up. I do like that. I really like the way that looks with the rose gold on the highlights and then the antiquing wax settling into the low points. I think that's gorgeous. So I'm going to take a few seconds here and add a few more of these rose gold highlights to some of my other little details here. For my next step, I want to add some interest to the background here, and I'm going to be using some stamps to do that. I'll use this section here from my Vintage Textures stamp, and I'm also going to be using some of my Rose Toile as well. If you just stenciled something in a very light neutral color on the background, these could achieve some of the same effect for you. And I picked both of these up at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to be using my archival ink in the color Coffee, which is just such a nice, soft, neutral color. I'm just going to load up my ink and stamp it down. And that just looks very nice and worn and crackled on this side here. That just adds such a nice little texture to the background. It also has some French script here, and I'm going to put that down the middle of this section here. And that goes a long way to just add a little bit of interest to the background. And I picked up this cute little stamp from Amazon, and I'm going to stamp it here. And I'm going to use the color Bluebird, and I hope that that's going to stand out on that color. But if it doesn't, I can paint over it and try again. I hope it shows up because I just think that is so cute. And it did show up. Look how cute that is. I really like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut all of my flaps off here and cut these sections apart as well. So I've cut out the shapes that I want. These things are great for bookmarks. I love to do tags just because I like to have them on hand, so that way I'm not having to make any at the last minute. I cut some of this off each side. I could have left that as it was. This would be cute in a picture frame. You could use these to cover notebooks. There are just so many different ways that you could use these in your crafting. So I'm just going to take my little molds here and just kind of lay them out and just see how I want them to look on each of my little cards here. Okay, so I like how that looks. You're just going to take more hot glue and glue those onto your backers. And I will be covering these with some beautiful scrapbooking paper before I actually give these to anyone, but I'll do that off camera just to save time in the video. And then press and hold that till it sets. Isn't that cute? I love that. So I'm just going to take some time and just glue down all of my little molds here. So I have all of those glued on. Look how pretty that turned out. I love these. And then I put this crinkled seam binding that I get from Etsy, and I'll leave her link for her shop below for you. But I just love how these turned out, and I did add some scrapbooking paper to the back of these off camera. So let me just show you each one of these here. So pretty. I just love these. They turn out so pretty. And you could literally do whatever you wanted to on these. And if you don't have these little molds, you could definitely use little flowers or other little florals to put on there instead of these glue molds. But I just think they all just turn out just so beautiful. I just love this. I think that is just so beautiful. I wish I had not overloaded my crackle stamp, then the little birds would have shown up better, but I think that is so cute. And for this little banner right here, I took a piece of music sheet scrapbooking paper and I stamped it with the word sweetheart. I picked up this set for $4.99. It was a set of 2 at Tuesday morning, but then once I stamped it, I just simply cut the little edges to look like a banner and kind of folded it so it stands up a little bit and just glued that down like that. Isn't that just so cute? I've got scrapbooking paper on the back of that as well, and then the pretty little pink crinkled seam binding on there. So cute. I had intended to do one more craft with you with this Dollar Tree picture frame, but I have simply run out of time this week. I've just had a lot going on. So now what I'm going to do is just clean up this mess and give you a closer look at how cute all of our little projects this week turned out. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been my pleasure to craft with you. Please remember to subscribe for more kinda shabby but always chic crafty inspirations. And until next time, my sweet friends, be blessed.